Not satisfied with taking on the Shambler, Hamster is going to take on Neblime. We're going to Derelict, a new map by Ben Taberski, aka Biddy B around these parts. Let's see what's up. So, we have indeed Hamster as the Cyan Zerg in the top right, and against Neblime, the Terran, Beastray Brown in the bottom left. And again, if I'm going to go by positions, I guess that would be 1 o'clock and 7 o'clock. I believe that's how they would handle that. Or maybe they would say 2 and 8. I don't know what it would say on the ASL stream if these two players were playing that, but you never know. You never know. And hey, again, I'll use this opportunity in the early game to remind you guys, Ascension 6, next tournament, is going to be taking place on the 4th. And that's of November, of course, and it is still open to signups. We have 10 players signed up right now. Looking to get to 12, by the way. And if we get even more than that, that's fine too, because we can figure out other groups. So, make yourselves known. Hop into the Discord server, etc., etc. I've been getting some pretty good feedback from people who are not sort of in the community but are tangentially aware of it. One of the things that somebody said, or actually a couple of people have been complaining about the renames, but one of the things that somebody said that was actual feedback instead of just why did you do that was, interestingly enough, they said something like, it was hard for me to follow the game because of the renames, right? So I'll just try to make sure that I impress upon the new viewers or the viewers who are a little bit less engaged with the project what's going on with the renames. And, you know, essentially the main reason why we did it was just for flavor. But it turns out it actually had a really positive side effect once you actually learn them, because now I can compare, say, the Maverick, which is our name for the Marine, to its non-CMBW counterpart, which has less HP, less base range, right? It has the upgrades and stuff and all that sort of thing. So that's not going to be a requirement here, like the Droleth, which is our name for the drone. As you can see here, it has 15 bonus HP compared to normal workers, to the drone, right? Yeah, so that sort of thing. And then, you know, we've got the pool, the Quazeth pool. I mean, that's pretty familiar. People will figure that out. It's okay, it's not called spawning, it's called something else, but still has pool. Hatcherosk still has hatch at the beginning. Certain things are designed to be a little bit more, you know, sensible when the roles aren't that different. Like Droleth is not really that different than a drone. But there are still some differences, and that allows us to compare them without having to say the drone in StarCraft 1 compared to the drone in CMBW. Anyway, you guys get the idea. So there's some strangeness going on here. I think Hamster is worried about a proxy. I think maybe he watched that Ascension game where Neblime was able to proxy Mystery Meat. I won't spoil how it ended, but you can check out that playoff series. If I remember, I'll even link it in the description. But it was a pretty good series. Certainly series that was full of twists and turns. Meanwhile, as the Stockade, our name for the barracks, has gone down here, just to train the single Cyprian so that Neblime can afford an expansion. Before he actually put his expansion down, he went for a Fulcrum, our name for the factory, which means he's going to have some mech out, but I'm curious as to why, or what his reasoning was. We do have some Quasilisks. This is a new Zerg unit. You can kind of think of it as a ranged Zethrakor, our name for the Zergling, so a ranged Zergling in the layman's terms. You can imagine it's mostly here for a safe approach. You can see they're fairly slow. They were recently slowed down on the tournament patch that's currently been playing Ascension 5. They're actually much faster, but they're less impactful versus armor. Whereas on this version of the game, which is sort of testing the next version, which will be the tournament patch, the Quasilisk is meant to be a little bit more about able to scale a little bit better than it currently did, or previously did. So it has 1 extra armor pen, which is very impactful because we've removed all like unit sizes and stuff. We don't have small, medium, and large, and we don't have concussive, explosive, normal for the damage. We just have armor and armor pen. So when you have 1 armor pen and you have low damage and multiple attacks where every attack gets reduced by armor, and the Quasilisk does attack twice, that is a case where actually adding 1 armor pen makes a pretty big difference. It allows it to deal a little bit more damage to armored units like the Cyclops, which is another new unit. It looks like I think maybe one of the reasons why he's going mech here, Neblime, is he knows that he's got the experience advantage over Hamster. For clarity, Neblime is a player who's made it to the Grand Finals of Ascension 5. We don't know the outcome of that Grand Finals series yet because it hasn't been played as of the time of recording. But we are going to be, you know, like he's got the experience edge. And the fact that he's actually got his expansion up before the Zerg is worth noting as well. Sort of covering a lot of different ground, wearing a lot of different hats here, talking about sort of introducing and inculcating new players into the project, but also trying to remember, hey, there's a match going on right in front of me. We do have a star pad coming up. keep an eye out for resources when either one of these players float a lot of gas in particular. That means that they're going to be looking towards teching up. I don't count this as a huge float, but Hamster might be thinking about that. He is dropping a Hydrith Den, which you don't actually need the Quasith Pool for. This is essentially the Hydra Den, right? Hydrock is what it was previously called, and now it's called Hydrith. So yes, even among our players, as some Nathrakors have been spotted, just going to do some light harassment. They might pick off a single Mason. I would be surprised if they get much more than that. There you go, one more. Hit, and that'll do it. Unfortunately, Hamster will be losing these. Cyclops leave behind a latent round on the ground that basically explodes, dealing friendly safe damage, so it doesn't hurt your own units. But basically, they're kind of used as like this crowd control if you can't escape the area of effect, right? So if you're not microing your units, or if your units are slowed or stunned, because the Vulture now provides those things. I saw a Vulture in the queue. He must have cleared it and built more Cyclopses instead. Anyway, his opponent is going for, crowds of units, so it actually makes sense that if Hamster gets caught in an area where he doesn't want to egress forward, because the anchor here, which can lift off unlike the bunker, has a Cyprian in it, which is another new unit that deals line trace damage, so it fires a line, damaging everything that it hits, assuming it can pierce them. Sometimes it can't. That depends on the armor as well. Those are mechanics that it's probably better to talk about when you actually have a little bit more grounding in the project, because that's like a little bit more of a niche mechanic. Sort of like, the armor and armor pen system is not as complicated as the damage type and unit size system, but it is something that it requires a little bit of know-how and feel. So the Masons are pulled to try to repair the anchor, but it's already very, very low. So this is a pretty lethal attack. We did see a Trojan, our name for the dropship, leave earlier. It does unload units a lot faster than before. That Anseal just tried to protect a lot of those units. It provides a sort of protective shell around the units, and the Cyprian's getting a lot of damage meanwhile. The Trojan has unloaded. There are 4 Cyclops in it. The Anseal was destroyed back at home, so detection could be a problem, but we don't see anything that would require that. And you can see these AoE shells are dealing a lot of damage to the Droleths. I think with a little bit better targeting, Neblime could have done a lot more, but now has to sort of walk backwards from the Quasilisks. They are going to deal full damage to the Cyclops now that they have 1 armor pen on this version, but it's not going to be enough. I think this one drop has just eviscerated any hope of Hamster had of coming back into the game. He's currently fine when it comes to workers in terms of worker count, but he's undersaturated. He has to pull his boys back from the front line, although it was like 2 Quasilisks and a Hydra. You can see the good kiting here from Neblime is causing so much damage, whereas you can just walk forward past it. So it's kind of like poor micro. Man, these Cyclops have paid for themselves and then some. Not just the workers, but they're still alive, causing more headaches. Now, yeah, okay, they're finally going to fall. Oof, 1 HP left on that Quas, by the way. So that could have been really, really bad. So that drop, Neblime must be feeling pretty happy about that. I don't know if he got the Trojan out. It was flying over a Spraith at the time. This was so when you lose a structure that was a mutation, or a unit that was a mutation for Zerg, if say this Circuit, our name for the Sunken, goes down, it turns back into the Kagrant colony or Cesiant, right? We double renamed those ones. Good luck remembering that. But basically, Sunken Colony turns back into Creep Colony when it's destroyed, and you can remorph it. If you're a Brood War fan, you'll understand what I mean when I say stuff like that. But I did talk about the gas. At this point, the Atlas and the Iral Iris are both going up at the same time. These are tier 2 tech nodes. So Atlas is renamed from the engineering bay, but it provides a completely different, well, technically it does upgrade your tech, but we don't have upgrades in CMBW. So it's like, it's a funny way of saying that it's sort of like its old role. So you saw both of our players go basically down to 0 money there as they tried to tech up at the same time. It's actually remarkable that Neblime teched up at the same time as Hamster, because Terran tech is cheaper in gas. So I'm really surprised that he was able to, and it's not nothing either. Some good proactive scouting coming out for Hamster as he tries to scour the map, see if he's still fighting an enemy on 2 bases. This Wraith is here to scout around for any fledgling bases that are being constructed, but Wraiths cannot really easily fly in because they have proximity cloak. So if enemies enter it within range, like now, they are going to be forcibly decloaked. And so some random Zethrakors were there to spot it. The other thing to point out is that the Iral Iris is actually a detector. So now that it's finished, it's going to go ahead and spot that. And we do indeed see some third base is being put down, at least just by one of our players. Another Cyclops drop on the way. I think Neblime is realizing, holy shit, that was way more powerful. Neblime, if you guys don't know, has said, don't listen to Pronogo. He's trying to propagandize you. He's trying to make you believe Cyclops are good, and they're not. And I think maybe they are, actually. He found a way. So he is taking some very minor damage to his scrapyard. There's a Blackjack army moving out. These are another new unit. There's like 80 plus new units, guys. You guys will enjoy it if you like new units. If you like theory crafting. We even have a gas cap going down. Hydra's Den being upgraded, evolved. This little drop plaza here, which can actually be built on if you spread Kagra over there, is welcomed the Cyclops. And even versus the Hydras, they can still do some pretty good damage, but the Blackjacks come in the front. They're not going to be able to get too much done, and there wasn't really that much room over here for the Cyclops to micro backwards. The Blackjacks are chewing up the Quasis. That's going to be pretty effective there. Blackjacks are actually, a little bit easier to get to, and cheaper to spam out in terms of time. They take less time than the other units out of the Fulcrum. They do require that add-on first, but you can get that at Tier 1, so that's not really a problem. And I wouldn't be surprised if these scrapyards end up getting salvaged or self-destructed, really, so that he can make Palladiums, which is our name for the machine shop. It unlocks the Phalanx, our name for the siege tank, and, of course, it also unlocks a new unit called the Madrigal, which Neblime is very fond of because you can deploy it, and it basically shoots everything. A Nidus is coming down, so that's interesting. You actually evolved that from the Creep Colony now, the Kagran Cesian. So that's going to be pointed towards this top left base, almost assuredly. Yeah, an interesting opener here. This match is going a little bit longer than perhaps expected after the early success of the Cyclops drop. It feels like Neblime probably could have hard committed into more military and added a lot more production facilities, and we see here he is going to go ahead and lose one of the scrapyards. And the thing about that, to me, is like, okay, if Neblime builds more production, he can probably just he's sort of all in, so to speak, and try to kill his opponent. And even if he's not successful, he's going to make it so that he can catch his opponent on the tech timing. Like, his opponent is not going to be able to backstab him or attack him back and retaliate. At that point, he might be a little bit behind in the tech timing, more so than he was already, since you're supposed to be ahead of Zerg at any rate. We have some interesting... Okay, he's going to go ahead and try to mine gas from the middle of the map. That's interesting. Yeah, if you guys don't know, neutral... So this is a new town center for the Terrans. It doesn't train workers, but you can return to it. And if it's neutral, any player can return to it. So obviously you have to actually task your workers on through Fog of War. You can't do it if you don't have active vision of the area. So he's had to correct that real quick. Not really a huge issue, but he's going to go ahead and benefit from that. If you're playing a 2v2 or some team game, you can actually do that pretty well as well. Wait, where did he put the... Oh my god, the Nidus was not going to the top left. This man essentially Nidus wormed his enemy. I am flabbergasted. He used the Irolith to pick up the Kagran. You can transport essentially creep colonies and drop them anywhere. And that spread Kagra. This is amazing, dude. I cannot believe Hamster had the wherewithal to drop that right at the sort of 11th hour. Now, there's a big stack of Wyverns here. They do deal only kinetic pen, so they have to pierce targets, and they're standing over Izira cores, which are getting bounce damages, and the Bactylisks aren't being closed in on either. So this is actually a really scary attack. More units flooding in. There was a drop deployment of the Madrigal, but it was only good for a couple of salvos. The Sentinels have airlifted in from elsewhere on the map and tried to deploy so that they can do some pretty good damage. That's going to help clean this up, but one of them has already fallen. And again, you can just keep getting macro cycles pumped through here. Where are the other units? They could be rallied directly onto the Nidus. So it looks like this has been trouble, but the star pad endures. The army is essentially shattered, right? There's not really much going on here. He is benefiting still from the Nidus in the middle. And yeah, this force will get cleared up. You can see the splash damage from the Sentinels and the Wyverns is enough. And now at this point, the Nidus is out. Hey, the Kagran got evacuated, though. That's really funny. It's cute that he's done that. That's a big brain strat. That's going in the thumbnail, almost certainly. He hasn't really saturated this base up here. Something that I've been trying to tell people, since you have multi-building select in CMBW, I've been trying to get Zergs to be aware that one of the things you should always do in this context is, like, if you've got Hatterosks on one side of the map, or production in general, because there's different kinds of production, you can just go for a... Oh, this is interesting. You put in a watchdog there. You can essentially put, like, your top left base on one hotkey, one control group, and your top right base, or everything else, on your right-hand side, another hotkey. So I usually use 5 and 6 for my production hotkeys. So I would do 6 for my secondary and 5 for my primary, and that way I can have military coming out of my 5. I hit 5 and then hit Q because I use grid hotkeys to select the larva and so on. Hey, there's a Nidus here to attack the third base. There are Wyverns here, but there's no Sentinels. And hey, there goes whatever that was. Oh, no, that was his Palladium. That's actually going to require him to rebuild that. It's not too expensive, but it will slow him down. The Trojan is spotting the Nidus, which is kind of funny. There's nothing in it. This middle base has still not been spotted. And I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if at some point the Kagran mutates into a Larvosk. And yeah, the Trojan is going to go ahead and spot that. Bactylisks are souped up Hydras. You evolve the Hydra into the Bactylisk. It does less damage versus armored, but it's still going to be pretty effective in this particular case. The only problem is he's going to need to focus down this Madrigal. It gets a couple of salvos. Yeah, 3 shots, 4 shots, 5 shots, 6 shots. Okay, now it's finally taken care of. There's another one down. I would honestly try to kill these Trojans as well. One of them only has like 1 HP anyway. It's probably going to die, if I had to guess. He's actually focusing, or trying to focus anyway, on this. And you can see the worker counts. Neblime is at 100 workers. There's no supply in CMBW, so it's not actually a bad thing. I mean, it's a little bit superfluous at some point, but yeah. So the Nidus strategies are I don't think they're working out for Hamster, but it's a cute idea. He's going to go for it a 3rd time. He still has this Kagrin after all, so he can just go ahead and drop the exit there. So every time you lose the Nidus exit, it kills the Nidus back at home, wherever you put it, and then it turns back into a Kagrin, because we talked about that regression mechanic earlier, where a mutation turns back into what mutated from it, or what its base unit was, or structure in this case. And so then you just remutate it again. But it does give you some cost of losing the Nidus exit, because Niduses cost different money. I don't know if it's exactly more. I can't remember. I think it's... Is it 150 in Brood War? I think so, by default. And it costs some gas here. This pair of Nats are going to be, thwarted, sent away. And yeah, Zerg hasn't actually taken many bases. He's now going to go ahead. Hamster is going to take his 4th, which is actually in the spot where his 3rd would be. This Seraph is over here, ominously. For those who don't know, our name for the science vessel, Seraphs can now paint nuclear strikes, and we do have an anvil. It is not loaded, so it doesn't have a Morning Star. Yes, we even renamed the missile. I mean, it sounds pretty epic when you hear the Morning Star has launched, or whatever, so I don't know. I don't think it's a problem. Here we have the Nidus exit has been placed. He can now attack. He might catch this Madrigal. Looks like it's not quite going to happen. He can use Cliff Advantage to deal a little bit more damage to the Sentinels. The Hydras are already taking a lot of heavy splash, though. I don't think that... I can't tell exactly what this is. Okay, the Seraph is probably going to be launching an Irradiate here at some point, but... Well, it doesn't quite get killed. It was very close to being dead, but... Even with the Focus Fire, it wasn't enough. That would have not really been a worthwhile pickup, but... It would have been something. Now, where did that... Okay, the Seraph came in here, irradiated some units. Some workers are dead. And here comes the Madrigal, but there is a circuit here to accept it, and it's not in the right mode anyway. Seraph is going to go ahead and paint a nuclear strike. And yeah, he deploys it at the last second, but he's only killed 1 worker with that. That was not going to pay for itself. This one, it'll deal damage to the Bactith, but I don't know that it's super mega. Oh, it's actually going to kill the Bactith. So that forces a regression. It turns back into a Hydrith. That will survive. Creating the AoE effect here, as you see, is pretty significant. It's essentially area denial. It doesn't do a massive amount of damage. Oh, it is dead. GG. Wait, I'm not sure what he meant by it is dead. Yeah, I don't know about that one. Absolutely bopped, though, either way. So that means that Neblime has indeed taken the first match. We'll go ahead and update our overlay. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens after that, because we have 2 more games on this same map. So let's see what's next. Tomorrow, because actually it was too long to do in one video, so stay tuned.